Hello, Elon. My heart goes out to the hostages and the families of those hostages.
Thank you.
How many of the 136 hostages currently being kept in Gaza does the government believe are still alive?
Thank you for your support and sympathy. The hostage issue is a source of incredible pain and frustration for the Israeli people. We're a very small country, so 250 hostages means everyone knows at least someone who had someone stolen from them, and we are sick with worry for the fate of those people still trapped in the Hamas terror dungeons. Of the 136 hostages still trapped, we believe that around 24 of them have since been murdered by Hamas in captivity, and it is now holding on to their bodies for a ransom.
It's just heartbreaking. Every night when I lay my head on my pillow, all I visualise is the families of the hostages and those poor hostages that are currently being kept in tunnels, young girls that have been raped, people that have been tortured. It's just unbearable. And I'm finding that people are forgetting to talk about the hostages, and it's very important for me to keep that alive, to keep reminding people about those hostages. It's not just about what's going on in Gaza and the destruction because you're trying to get to Hamas. There are real people that are suffering every single night, and we need to think about them. My heart is breaking every day.
Elisa, that's well said.
You're
and
right.
one of the reasons for going in to Gaza was to get those hostages back. As of December the 22nd, only one hostage has actually been rescued, as opposed to either being released through a prisoner exchange or any other method. Has that number increased?
We have 110 hostages who have been released, mostly as a result of the hostage release pause that we agreed with Hamas, where in exchange for giving it a break in the fighting, it released hostages. Now, we hope that that framework would continue and we would be able to get at least all of the women and children out. Unfortunately, on December 1st, Hamas decided to stop releasing all the women and children and to resume rocket fire at Israel. And everyone in Israel is really sick with worry for the hostages. We're talking about intensely vulnerable people. Certainly the women, given everything we know about the Hamas sexual atrocities. Elderly people without their medication. I spoke just the other day with Rachel Goldberg, an incredibly brave woman who has been lobbying for her son Hirsch, who was abducted from the Nova Music Festival after Hamas death squads threw grenades into a roadside bomb shelter, killed most of the young people there, and blew his, I'm sorry to be too graphic on Drive Time Radio, blew off his left arm from the elbow down. And they've been denied access to the Red Cross. And tragically, we had the president of the Red Cross here in Israel, and the prime minister said, you need to pressure Hamas to get access to the hostages. And she shuffled in her seat and said, that's not going to work. And you know what? We don't think that's good enough. We think the international community needs to put more pressure to make sure that those hostages are released not only immediately and unconditionally, but that they get access to the Red Cross and medical treatment.
Does Israel know where these hostages are? As I say, only one hostage has actually been rescued, which is part of Israel's reason for going in. And of course, there was this incident before Christmas where IDF soldiers killed 3 of Israel's own hostages who were reportedly running at them saying help in Hebrew, half naked, waving white flags.
Yeah, really a tragic incident that shocked the whole country. I wish there were an option for the army to swoop in with special forces and grab the hostages, as Israeli special forces have done in the past with hostage crises. Unfortunately, Hamas has spent a very long time preparing for this, and we know that those hostages are either hidden inside tunnels that will be booby-trapped, or, and this is really shocking and is coming out from the survivors of the Hamas terror dungeons, we know that many of the hostages were actually held inside civilians' homes. As difficult as this is to believe, we know that they were being held in ordinary people's houses, and so they're spread out across the Gaza Strip. Hamas is making it very difficult to reach them, and that's why our strategy now is to put unrelenting military pressure on Hamas until it begs for another breather and is willing to release the hostages. Standing by and simply asking nicely or sending Hamas an email to release the hostages was never an option.
All right. Elisa, thank you for the call. Dave's in Liverpool. Dave.
Yes, hello. I'd like to ask Mr. Levy that in light of the thousands of men, women, children, babies who have been killed in Gaza, how does he think that Israel is going to secure a lasting peace? Because you do think all those people who have lost, family members or had their homes destroyed would be seeking some sort of retribution against Israel. So I just don't see how you are really securing the safety of people in your country by your actions.
Is there a question, Dave?
Well, yeah, the question is, how do you think you're making Israel more secure when you're making more people have a vengeance against you?
Back to the point I was making about the attempts to try and de-radicalise that part of the world. Mr. Levy.
First of all, you're right. The humanitarian situation is deeply upsetting. Every civilian casualty is a tragedy. Civilian casualties are unfortunately a tragic feature of every war, and they're a tragic feature of this war, which Hamas started, which Hamas launched with the October 7th massacre, and is fighting out of densely populated areas where it is deliberately hiding itself under people's homes, schools and hospitals. And everyone who has been killed would still be alive if Hamas had not started this war, and if Hamas simply surrendered, laid down its arms, handed back the hostages, and allowed us to move towards a future of peace and prosperity. But on October 7th, Hamas invaded Israel. Hamas brutally massacred 1,200 people. They burned whole families alive, and they abducted 250 hostages. And at that point, we faced a choice: to leave the hostages in Gaza, abandon them, and leave in place the terror regime that tells us it wants to do it again.
The mission to go and get them hasn't been a success, has it? If only one hostage has been returned via rescue, it's not been successful as an operation to go in and get them out.
We have succeeded in securing the release of 110 hostages as a result of the military pressure that we placed on Hamas. And what we are doing now is destroying the Hamas terror state so it cannot hurt our people again. Because the sad fact is, we want this war to be over. We want it to go away, and we want all of our friends who are in reserves, and there are parents in this country who can't sleep because their children have left their ordinary day jobs or in reserves. We want them home, but we know that this war can't end until Hamas is destroyed, because otherwise Hamas will attack us again, as it tells us repeatedly that it wants to do. We're in a situation now where there are no good options, only less bad options.